So this is pretty interesting. I've posed the question in the past before whether the women's tournament was more interesting than the men's tournament in March Madness. And, my opinion is as it gets deeper, you will have more interest on the women's side. I don't know how the ratings will break out. Obviously, last year, the women actually outrated the men. Final four on, of course, Caitlin Clark, a huge part of that. But the women's basketball ratings on the college side have stayed high. They've remained high this season. I expect the men to do much better at the beginning when everybody's filling out their brackets and the customs and all that. But as teams move along and as teams are eliminated and as brackets are busted, I do think it's going to be close. And I do think there will be a lot of hype on the women's side because of the nature of the powerhouse programs and players. South Carolina, obviously, Juju Watkins is playing. And then, of course, there is UConn. And there was a bit that came out about UConn that I saw today that caught my eye. I mean, I don't know how it translates necessarily one-to-one versus interest, or as interest, but people are spending their money. They're spending their coin on UConn in the NIL store, and that's more so than on the men's side of things. This report here says that in the month of February, women's basketball NIL store apparel sales surged by 126%. The massive increase in sales was led by UConn women's basketball, which had the top overall selling program in February, edging out Duke men's basketball. UConn superstar Paige Beckers was the top earning athlete, male or female, in February, while Duke's Cooper Flagg finished as the second highest earner. Now, for somebody who grew up when I did, that's a huge deal. Duke was the program. They were the needle mover in college basketball. I went to the University of Maryland. We hated Duke at the time. That was when, Jay Williams led a comeback, and I was at Cole Fieldhouse for that game. Maryland was up 10 with 54 seconds left and lost that game, something like that. We lost to Duke in the Final Four that year as well, but then the next year won the championship. Obviously, during that Duke time, J.J. Redick was there. Carlos Boozer was there. Coach K, of course, was there. But they were the hated team. They were the team that, they were the Yankees or that kind of team, right? The Lakers, that kind of team in college sports. And, the last major male college basketball star, I would say, went to Duke, and that was Zion Williamson. But, of course, he was only there for a cup of coffee. And the same thing goes for Cooper Flagg, which is one of the reasons this is happening the way it is that there's no attachment on the men's side. People don't really feel the stories, follow the stories, grow accustomed to the players, see their journeys. They're just there and then gone. And it's almost certain that's going to be the case with Flagg because of the monetary incentive for him to go to the NBA, where he's projected to be the number one pick in the draft. Meanwhile, you've got the projected number one pick in the WNBA draft, who is bigger than him according to NIL sales. And, when I posed this question when the NBA draft happened, other than Bronny James, which we know why he's such a big deal, was there a player in the NBA draft who was as famous or more famous than Paige Beckers? And I don't think so, right? And it's just more and more evidence of this transformative time that we are in. Transformative time that we are in. And it's really cool to see. And it also just shows you how big a deal UConn women are. Aside from, trust me, I know because I cover a lot of this stuff and I see the data behind it. And this is not just from the YouTube Women's Fastbreak on SI and other platforms, other ways for me to see this data. Aside from Clark and the Fever, UConn women's basketball drives the most. And you see it there from this NIL store too. So that goes to show you the history that they've, cultivated, of course, with Gino Auriemma, and the star power that's currently there with Paige Beckers. And, there's other teams. South Carolina draws a lot of attention to. They've got a big fan base, that's for sure. Obviously, there's the individual stars like Juju and Hannah Hidalgo. But the further that UConn women go in March, the better it is for women's basketball. There's no question. Sarah Strong, by the way, who to me is just an unreal prospect, put this up on Instagram. Time to dance. Paige Beckers responded to it. Can't wait to see your moves. I am keen on UConn because of Sarah Strong. I think Sarah Strong is, she could prove to be the all-around best player in the country by the end of the NCAA tournament. I think it could happen that fast. She's that talented. I mean, when you look at Juju is a superb talent and prospect because of her size and her ability to score at her size. Sarah Strong, aside from being an offensive initiator, or not being an offensive initiator just because she's big, she checks every single box. Unbelievable size, unbelievable skills. She can shoot the ball, unbelievable instincts and basketball IQ. She's a you can just tell she understands the game. She knows where to be on the floor. She knows how to help her teammates. Then she's got great hands and can finish. I mean, what are her numbers right now? Sarah Strong's numbers. Let me look those up real quick. I remember looking them up the other day. Pretty damn good for where she is in her career, of course. Right now, Sarah Strong is sitting at 16 points, 8.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, shooting almost 58% from the floor. Hoo-wee. I mean, AZ Fudd, I'm a fan of too, the way she can shoot the ball. She's got the best form on her jumper, I think, in the sport. But Paige has a chance to get that championship because of Strong. And I would be wary, if I'm any opponent, about the growth that, Strong can still take, because she's still growing into a scoring role, right? But regardless, when it comes to name, image, and likeness, UConn is moving merch, and Paige is moving merch. And just to see any women's basketball program beat Duke, and any individual player beat the biggest star at Duke and the biggest star in the men's sport, and it to not be this, unique Caitlin Clark effect and phenomenon to continue is noteworthy in my mind. So I don't know what it means for the tournament. I don't know, how much it should be read into, but it shows UConn's got support, and it shows and continues to show, the growth, the surge in women's basketball that has become readily apparent. So I thought it was cool to at least share.